So I have just finished reading The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, which is a great book and I highly recommend it. It's a bit of a heavy read, but it is wonderful. And I just kind of want to talk, about how this book is based, sort of the way it's gone about telling the story. It is a fictional book. It is a made-up story with made-up characters, but it's almost drawn and inspired. I like the term cast to describe it, which I know is a bit of a funny term for a book, but it feels like Esther Greenwood, the main character, is cast from Sylvia herself, the writer. The main character is, in essence, the author, basically presented, but sort of also only aspects of the author, not the author entirely. A bit of the author and a bit of her life experiences and a bit jived in there for fiction's sake. It's sort of semi-autobiographical. It's what lots of people like to describe it, despite it being a fictional novel. Like, the second half of the book basically is just about a tenure in an asylum where there's shock treatments and, just the livings of that. And Plath did have that. She lived through that. She experienced that as a young, early 20s. She did have months of shock treatment. She had a tenure of, I think, 6 months in an asylum, just like Esther did in the book, yeah? And many of the things that Esther does and many of the things that Esther goes through, Plath went to in one way or another. Maybe not the exact experience, but sort of the way of the experience or how it made her feel. She felt that way through a different thing. And also, Plath had the same chances, had the same ambitions, had the same, winnings in life at the very beginning, as Esther did, but had the very same sort of downward spiral. Both the main character and the author have the same depression, the same major depressive I don't know if it's a syndrome or what, but both of them had it. And she goes on at the end of the book very ambiguously. It does not give a sort of definitive answer. It kind of cuts off before where you'd assume the end of the story would be. But as, if you know, Plath herself went on very sadly to, not that long after finishing and publishing this book, to actually commit suicide at age 30, which is briefly after Esher's stage in the book. So it's almost as if she follows on from that ambiguous stage, giving it a sort of empowered sense of truth, because she actually sort of, in her real life, fulfilled that ambiguity, because Esther goes off at the end of this book not really being better, but not really having a chance to get worse or to get better. She's kind of stuck but forced on, which is exactly what Plath had in the last few years of her life. So it feels like she was emulating her coming situation through the last chapters or so of this book. And also, there's another side character in this book, Joan, who actually ends up committing suicide. She is someone who was in the asylum with Esther. And because Plath does commit suicide, you kind of see how Plath's personality was portrayed through Joan as well as Esther. And you're going to see that in any author's book, because of course any one singular author is writing the book, and every aspect of every character is picked by them, so that there is bound to be an essence of themselves in a main or a high value character. But Joan is always, to Esther, envied. She doesn't want to be Joan. She wants to be as far removed from Joan as she can be. But Plath's ultimate, death in the end, coming back to this book with that knowledge, you can see how Plath is both Esther and Joan. She is both them, a combination of them. She follows both the same path. She had the same chances. They're almost like two sides of her personality. She was, the succeeding, successful socialite who had a downfall. She was the succeeding, successful socialite who could have got better. So it really throws her into this book, into her writing. She is her characters. She may not have lived the exact experience of this book, but every page in this book and every action is something a part of Plath. She had not these experiences, but these emotions. She knew the pain that is put into this, and that's why she put it down, because she knew it and had to get it out. And maybe she couldn't get it all out, and that's why what happened, but maybe it was just due course, or whatever it was. Her death coincides with her characters, her writings, her books. It is all one big accumulation. Her entire life's work is parallel to her death, basically. And that is how she based the bell jar.